Hey, thank you so much for downloading a trial of Optuma. We really appreciate you taking the time to have a look at what Optuma can do for you. Now, Optuma, obviously, it isn't a simple web chart. It is an amazing, powerful system for technical analysis, quantitative analysis, for managing all of your analysis. And it's absolutely amazing all the things that Optuma can do for you. So I want to take a few minutes just running through a few of the features that Optuma has, and also to give you those first little steps on how to get started, because it can be a little bit intimidating because there's so much power, but in reality it's actually very easy to use, and we'll go over that. But before we do, I actually just wanted to show you a couple of things right here at the start of the types of things that you'll be able to do once you go through these videos and you set up your workspaces. So let's go jump over here to Optuma. You can see this is a workbook that we've created. Now, Optuma is a lot like Excel, where we have page tabs in a workbook, which are different pages, and all of those can have different charts on them. But here you can see we've got the S&P 500 sectors, a relative rotation graph and a bar chart, and I can click on any one of the rows and this updates. I can look at the RIG and I can see how they moved over time. So it's really powerful. A couple other examples, again, a watch list, which is linked to the technology sector. And I can see all of those stocks, click on any of them that may interest me. Hang on, I just hit a cross and closed that one. But I can hit any of the stocks that interest me and view them there with a couple of indicators on there. We'll show you how to build all of that. Another example, but with a swing chart. Swing charts are great for identifying trend. Really powerful indicators for that. Again, another RIG, seasonality. What months of the year does the market perform best in? Over, when we look at the averages, and we can see that September's are usually pretty bad and November's are pretty good, and this November has been absolutely great. So again, we see these sorts of things repeat year after year. Watchtail charts, a relative comparison, so taking the percentage changes of charts and being able to view them. Point and figure, Renko, there's so many different chart styles available in Optuma. Historical comparison, where we take the Dow Jones, but we take different periods of time, like 1929, 2020, 2021, and we put them all on the same chart. Again, looking at percentage changes and seeing how they compare. We've got our pivots. Pivots are a great indicator if you just want to say, I want to identify the tops, the turning points in the market. Pivots is a good tool for doing that. And so I think this one's set to 15 bars, which means that there has to be at least 15 bars clear on either side before that pivot's going to show. So again, it's a nice little tool for doing that. And then finally, we've got these sectors again, but with a different type of column chart here available. So again, as I said, there's so many different chart styles, and we're going to go through how you can create a lot of those. Now, while we're talking about support and getting things done in Optuma, it's always really good to remember that we have a couple of resources which are going to help you. So whilst these videos, we're going to show you the basics on how to get started, the main thing you're going to want to remember is help.optuma.com, because that's where our whole knowledge base lives. There are thousands of articles in our knowledge base based on indicators, based on getting things done. Maybe if it's publishing, if you're a sell-side analyst and you're sending research, we have a whole publishing module which you can use. You're going to find out a lot about how these things work at help.optuma.com. And if you can't find the answer you're looking for, you can also submit a ticket to our support department. Our support department's manned a lot during the day, 5 days a week, and even sometimes on weekends. So you'll get an answer within a few hours, no matter where you are in the world. Another resource which is really powerful is our courses. We have an Optuma 101 course, and you'll find that at learn.optuma.com. And that's where we go through a lot more detail of how you can build these things all the features in the software and how you can leverage them to create the workflow that you're looking for. One other thing which is worth mentioning is that Optuma is obviously a Windows application. Now, you may or may not have installed it by the time you see this video. If you are running a Mac, you're going to need to use Parallels or Fusion or something like that. Another option is paperspace.com. We have a number of Mac clients that use paperspace.com. It's basically a Windows PC in a browser, and you can install your copy of Optuma into that instead if that makes more sense for you. So whichever way works best, you can get Optuma running, but it has to be on a Windows 64-bit version there. All right, let's have a look at Optuma. So this is the screen that you're going to see when you first start up. Now, these little orange help bubbles just give you a couple of hints, but we'll close them because we're going to go over that. So the first thing I want to do is obviously open a chart. That's what we're here for. Many different ways to do it. The simplest way is from the menu at the top here, and I can go New, Single Code Chart, and we can say, let's open up a candlestick chart of, let's say, Microsoft. So I type in MSFT. Now, I could explore through this tree structure here and find it. I just find it easy to search for the ticker if I know it, or if I don't, I can search for the name and it'll find it as well. Optuma knows which are the most common securities that are opened and will always put those at the top. Obviously, I have lots of data on this copy, and you can see that I've got lots of different entries, Bloomberg, London Stock Exchange, etc. You won't see all of those. It'll depend on what data you have. But if you can't find what you're looking for, again, let our support department know and they can help you find what you're after. So we can double click on that and we can open up our chart of Microsoft. Now, one of the best ways of navigating around a chart is using your mouse wheel. You can drag the chart around, you can drag the price scale, but notice when I do drag the price scale or even use my mouse wheel on the price scale, we get this padlock. It just means the scales are locked. At any time, if I want to unlock it and make it auto scale again, I just click on the lock and it unlocks for me. The history slider shows me the whole history of this security all the way back to 1986, and I can grab this portion which represents what's on my screen and I can move that around wherever I want. So I can zero in 1987, see how Microsoft went through Black Monday there, and we can just zoom back and forth however we want to look at that. Now, a couple of things. Let me open up these panels. I want to show you some of these other important areas of Optuma. We've got our actions, our properties, we've got our structure panel and the info panel. The info panel is just telling me another way of seeing the prices and the information wherever my cursor is. But the important ones are the actions and the properties. So let's add an indicator. So I'm going to come up to the Tools menu and let's go to Averages, and I'm just going to add a simple oscillator and drop that on the chart, and you can see the oscillator being added here. Now, when I add an indicator or when I click on an indicator, so if I click on this oscillator, you'll see that the actions and the properties update because they are for that oscillator. Now, actions are anything we can do to the indicator, but they don't necessarily change the way that it's calculated or drawn. It's really things like copying the data to the clipboard, adding to the toolbar. So for instance, I may sit here and say, this is an indicator I want all the time. I want it to be able to get to it rapidly. I can say add to toolbar, and here it is up there. And then when I click on it, it's very simple to add. I'll just do a right click and I can just delete that one there. The other thing are obviously the properties. Now these are, as I said, how we calculate it, how we display the tools, all of those are available here and we can change those. And a lot of those you can just click and drag. So let me just add a indicator here. Now you can see that I've gone for a right click. This is just the way that I always add indicators. I actually rarely go up to the Tools menu. It's handy for browsing through all the different tools and indicators that are available. But when I know what I want, all I do is I come to the right click, I go to the wrench, and I can see the recently used indicators that I've used, but I can also search for anything else. So I can just type in moving average, find it in the list and click on it, and it just gets applied straight away to that chart. Now again, same thing here, properties, I can see them, I can click and drag, which is really handy for a moving average when I'm trying to find the ideal length for the cycle length or something like that. That allows me to create all of this work. I can create extra pages. Again, I can go to new. Another thing I do is I often right click on an empty part of the chart and I say I want my candlestick chart, and this time I'm going to open up IBM and I can open that there. I can make space on my chart, I can right click again and I can insert a chart into this location. So let's just say I want to do ExxonMobil, and that's there as well. And so you can see there's so much flexibility. I can right click, I can go to the actions for the chart and I can say I want to clone the chart, and then I can change the time frame. So this menu at the top, you've got control over the chart style, over the currency, over whether it's price returns or total returns, if the data allows for that. Otherwise that option won't be there. Layouts we'll talk about another time in another video, but you've got so much control right at your fingertips. But once you've created a workbook like this, we can then go to the file menu, we can say save, and we can save this as my first workbook. And then if we had closed the workbook and I come back and say, right, let's open my first workbook, it comes back exactly as it was before. So hopefully that's helped you just get started with Optuma. Obviously a lot more to go through and a lot more videos, but this gives you an idea of the types of things you can do once you get it all installed and up and running, but also the types of things to look forward to. All right, I hope that was helpful. Thanks for watching.